We're live.
We're live.
Hello there. So greetings to everyone watching this video or just listening to us on the Virtual Jug podcast. I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day. So we just finished the session, Virtual Jug session with Bert Ertman, and that was about building modular Java applications in the cloud age. So just go to Virtual Jug website and find the session and find other sessions there. So Bert is the former annual Jug leader and a frequent speaker at Java and software architecture, and a Java champion, and a Java 1 rockstar, and a Duke Choice Award winner, and a fabulous speaker. So I had great fun listening to the session. So Bert, how do you feel? Do you have a good time presenting at Virtual Jug today?
Yeah, thanks, Oleg. Yeah, absolutely. It was a really cool thing to do. I've been speaking at a lot of conferences, but the Virtual Jug was the first for me. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope the attendees like the session as well.
Did you like kind of like remote setup? Do you have any complaints about that?
No, I think the Google Hangouts infrastructure is perfect for sessions like this. So I've been doing sessions like this on other competing technologies, so it actually works. So sometimes you feel a little bit alone talking to your computer, right? But
it can happen.
Yeah.
Great. I'm really happy that you enjoyed that. So let's dig into the quick questions that we have, a standard set of questions that we ask every speaker. So what do you think? Is computer science a real science? You had a very applied topic, so this is...
Well, is it a real science? Yeah, well, for me it is. It was it was interesting getting through university, but for me it all became alive when I got my first job and actually started doing stuff. Right, so I'm more like a doer than a about science.
So a very applied science. Good. So what do you prefer more, static or dynamic typing?
Actually, I think I like static typing more. I'm really a Java guy. So yeah, there's the every now and then groovy test case or some JavaScript. But if I have to choose one language, it will be Java, and so it's going to be static types.
So let's follow up that. Like, what is your favorite JVM language if you would have to pick one alternative non-Java language? Like not Java.
Okay, so favorite language. Well, maybe the answer is I don't really have one. I think it's great that there's a whole many languages available on the JVM, and the JVM is becoming the Java platform. It's no longer about Java, the language. I think that's a really good thing. I don't specifically have a favorite one.
Awesome. And what would you say is your favorite open source project?
Favorite open source project? Well, I think there's a number of open source projects that I've been using heavily. The one that I'm involved in recently is the Amdatu project that I also talked about in the presentation I just did on modularity. If you go to amdatu.org, it's a whole set of OSGI-ready cloud components which really boost your productivity when building these kind of applications.
Awesome. But tooling is really important at every stage. So you did a session on OGI and on the cloud. So let's go backwards in time and start with cloud. So do you think it's just an abstraction of the resources that you just rent as you go, or is it like a really paradigm change in the minds? And do you see cloud as a development tool as well, or just a place where operations people like do stuff?
Okay. Well, I think both of the viewpoints are really interesting. I think for some of our customers, the cloud is nothing more than just virtualization technology and a way they think to do cost savings. And the way I like to see it is that the cloud is really about innovation. And sometimes it's just a way for our customers to circumvent their existing ops departments, right? So, I mean, it takes you like 4 months to get a new server, and it takes you like 4 seconds to start a server in the cloud, right? So that's one way of thinking about it. On the other hand, the architecture that comes along with cloud is all about scale, and about dealing with dynamics and dealing with remoting, and there's a whole number of interesting non-functional requirements that goes along with the cloud, that on one hand gives you a whole number of benefits, but on the other hand you really need to take them into account when designing your application and your architecture. So for me, the cloud is more about the latter than about the previous one, and I really do think it's a development tool, and also a tool for companies to conquer new business.
Great. If that's a very thought-through answer, actually. I like that. If you imagine kind of a medium average Java project, like not a Java project, just like we created on the session, but not like a super enterprise gigantic. So, well, what would you prefer personally to deploy it into the infrastructure as a service cloud, like maybe Amazon Web Services or something that provides you access to the bare OS, or some middleware offerings that kind of provide you with more infrastructural components? So, and do you think middleware has to catch up with the infrastructure offerings, and in what sense?
So, well, I've been building cloud applications for a while, sometimes out of a hobby, sometimes for real customer projects. So I've been doing both the deploying stuff on the bare metal images, like infrastructure stuff, and I've been also using some of the PaaS offerings out there. So I think both are nice. I mean, there's really interesting cloud offerings that do PaaS, but one of the things with PaaS is that you are usually locked into the platform of the specific PaaS provider. So, well, as soon as you start using APIs from their PaaS services, then your application is no longer portable, so you can no longer take it to another PaaS provider and run it there. Of course, there's some standardization in this space going on, but I think it's mostly a way for these vendors to actually create new lock-in or new leverage on customers building an application like this. So what I really like is that I can go along with infrastructure offerings, and then on top of the infrastructure, we create, for example, for the demo that I just did, we created a very small layer, which is just the OSGI framework on top of the Java virtual machine. And then we actually built our, if you like to say, an application server a la carte, right? So I just included some REST runtime. I include a little bit, maybe data access on Mongo or on a relational database. And I create some security components in my list. So I just really create my own on-the-fly application server and deploy that on my infrastructure image. Now the thing with that is I can just really pick up that stack, and then if tomorrow another cloud provider is cheaper, I just move my entire stack onto the infrastructure offering of the other cloud provider, and I can run it for cheaper on their infrastructure. So I really like that approach.
Exactly, because you depend only on the JVM process running somewhere. So you just
exactly.
Around.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and yeah, OSGI is a modular architecture, and obviously, as I said, you can like pick different components that you want to bundle into your application and just run it anywhere.
So there's one thing I'd like to add, because we've been talking a little bit about OSGI, but to me, actually, modularity is more important than the means to get there. So there's this thing, I mean, what's more important, OSGI or modularity? So to me, modularity is far more important, and there's different solutions to doing modularity. I think that right now OSGI is the only one that is, really mature and has been out there for a long, long time, and is the one of choice. But then there's Project Jigsaw coming up in a while, right? So they've been talking about Jigsaw for like 10 plus years now. So first got to see what will really end up in what version of Java exactly. But someday it will be there. And then, being able to build modular application is way more important than just hooking to one specific library or one specific framework.
So do you think OSGI will have place in the Jigsaw implementation, and after Jigsaw is released and adopted, will we still like use OSGI?
Well, we're certainly looking at Jigsaw as well now, especially now that there's some builds of Jigsaw coming out that are well, actually a bit usable. But I think, well, OCI has been a product of years and years and years of development. So Jigsaw, as it will be in the first release, will not entirely be on par with OCI, given all the features. So at first, I think one of the main design goals of Jigsaw is to actually modularize the JDK itself. I mean, that's one of the most important goals, and actually that's also something that is really needed. So, and then secondly, a Jigsaw is also able to be used by application developers to create modular applications. But this is obviously something that will need more thought, will need more work in future releases of Java. So for example, the whole services registry model that I demonstrated in my session with OCI, it remains to be seen how this works out with Jigsaw in its first release, for example. Right?
Yeah, so and with the Jigsaw coming and in our age of hype for microservices, when every program is trying to be as small as it possibly could and be as independent from all the other components, what do you think? Will OSGI evolve? And you said in the session that OSGI kind of coined the term microservice 10, 15 years ago when started talking about modularity and bundles. But currently we are witnessing the shift towards the microservices. Should OSGI be changing somehow in that direction as well, or do you think those approaches are kind of orthogonal and can live together well?
Yeah, I think there's interesting parallels to draw between OSGI services and what we call microservices architecture now. Well, the term microservices was earlier coined by OCI, let's say a number of years ago. If you think about it, OCI is about having services inside of a single JVM, and then microservice architecture is actually running one service on a virtual machine, collaborating with other services, maybe running on a virtual machine or maybe running on something else, right? But since we have a focus on modules and services when we design our modular applications, and if you do that in a correct way, you really have a nice stepping stone to promote some of the services in your applications to microservices if you want them to be part of a microservices architecture. Right? Not every service that you design will be a microservice. I mean, you have to think about granularity and how it works together with other parts of your system. But some of the systems that you at first design as an OSGI service might become microservices in your architecture later. Of course, one of the pitfalls with microservices is that it's like a really cool thing to do right now. But people should not forget that microservices are not designed to fix broken architectures, right? So you should really think about what you are doing first. But if you have a focus on services and modules, I think stepping it up into microservices architecture is actually a very smooth. There's actually a very smooth transition from OSGI services to microservices later on.
And then actually back again. So to me, microservices is all about building to fall apart if something goes wrong. So some parts of your system can just go offline or something, and it just leads to a better understanding of the design of your system. So yeah, I think there can be transition both from microservices back into standalone single monolith deployment with modules, obviously, of course.
Yeah.
Since you have that design in place. But if you think of an average development team which looks to design and write modular code, so what do they need to learn? It's just the technology? Is it a lot about process? Or what would you recommend as a starting point?
Well, I think the basic stuff is actually pretty well. On one hand, it's pretty easy to do. On the other hand, sometimes the easier things are the hardest to achieve, right? So it all starts with having a sound design. So if you come up with a crazy design, you can throw every framework and solution at it that you want, but you will never end up with a modular application, right? So it all starts with adhering to the two basic rules of software design, which is to promote cohesion and to prevent coupling. So if you have a sound if you have a sound design, and there's a whole number of patterns to do this. There's a number of, well, let's call them modularity design patterns that you can use, that you can apply to your design in order to truly find the right granularity for your modules. And then, if you translate them into actual physical modules using, for example, the approach that I just demonstrated, then you are really good on your way. Because previously, right, you have to read like books this big to know all the ins and outs and all the nuts and bolts of OCI in order to create a working application. But as you saw me do in the demo, I mostly let all of the hard parts be handled by the B&D Tools plugin, and I actually just well, used most of its simple features just to create modules. All of the wiring and other stuff was handled by dependency managers. So I think it's, if you compare it to traditional development, compared with Spring or with Java EE, I think there's the learning curve is about the same. I think the hard part is in getting the design right.
Great. Yeah, and indeed, like while you were showing the demo, tooling was amazing. You just drag and drop things, and you can understand how it works. And it was very smooth.
Yeah, and that was just a plugin inside of Eclipse. So I also get questions a lot. What about other editors? What about IntelliJ? What about NetBeans or VI or whatever people are using to do their coding? Well, unfortunately, right now, B&D Tools plugin is only available for Eclipse. I know there's something in the works to have kind of similar features in IntelliJ going. But then underneath the B&D Tools infrastructure, there's Gradle files. So you can just hook the Gradle build files into your automatic build environment and also build it from a Jenkins server.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, I'm out of the questions, so thanks a lot for your time here. It was a very thoughtful interview. I hope I enjoyed asking you things. So thanks everyone who watched this video. Thank you for podcast listeners. This interview will be published on the Rebel Labs blog along with the write-up of the session. So go there and watch that and read that, and of course watch the full session. Thanks a lot, Bert.
All right, sure. Thanks for having me.